This is Johann Gylfason, and you're listening to the Talk Carby to Me podcast.
Thank you for joining me today, Johann.
Oh, nice to be back.
So those of you who missed Johann's first appearance on the Talk Carby to Me podcast, we got an update recently from him, from his recent travels, which we'll dive into. He's actually currently the #1 ranked male masters open powerlifter for Iceland.
That's right. So I thought I was just the top guy in my weight class, and then when I looked at it, I'm the top guy over the whole thing. So that was really cool.
That's got to be an awesome feeling. Does every country have a ranking like that?
They sure do. In America, it's more because there are more federations. It's a little bit more complicated. But in a small country like Iceland, you can actually rank the entire country, and it's a lot easier because there's only about 390,000 of us.
Oh, that's a very interesting piece of data, which I will use later in the episode. So I actually came across something the other day, and I couldn't think of a more interesting opinion that I wanted to hear than from you on this. All right, so this is a would you rather.
Oh, okay.
Would you rather have a son who is full vegan or a daughter who has an OnlyFans account?
I feel like the vegan because I can fix that. If with the OnlyFans, that's damage is done, so I can't undo that, but I can undo the damage from the vegan diet. So definitely the son who's vegan.
But what if you can't fix it?
I still, I'm gonna go.
If that's the hill that they choose to die on.
I mean, I'm gonna go with the vegan because that's you can do okay with the vegan diet, but the OnlyFans, especially your daughter, ugh, man, people are seeing your daughter doing terrible things potentially. I don't like that. So I'm gonna go with the son vegan. Yep, that's my choice.
If we caveat the severity of the content on the OnlyFans, does that change the conversation a little bit?
It does. If it's like artistic nudes, that's fine. But if it's like hardcore pornography, yeah, I don't think I'd like that very much.
I got you.
I have a daughter, so I can kind of put, place myself there pretty well, where she would never do something like that. But yeah, I think tasteful, like what do they call that stuff they're doing right now? The boudoir or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Nudity's fine. But if it's just like, gangbangers, I don't know. It's just, no, I wouldn't like that one bit.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it would depend on the severity of the OnlyFans account.
Yes.
And severity, not saying that any of the type that on there is bad. I'm just saying like what level it's at. If it's like a softcore variety or if it's like a hardcore variety. See, me, I'd be more curious. It depends what my daughter's doing with the money. Right. So let's say it's kind of tasteful.
Okay.
Right. And she's slowly but surely building an empire, and she's investing that money, and now she's like
a Mia Khalifa or something.
I don't know if that's the best example, but maybe someone like Sydney Sweeney, who apparently is given carte blanche to be tasteful on every single medium that she's ever appeared on. But something like that, where like there's this empire brewing in the background, where it's just like that happens to be the one depreciating asset that she has because I've failed at everything else, and she built a business out of it and was able to start like the next big thing in some kind of industry.
There's a lot of what ifs with this question. So yeah, it's like if she does hardcore pornography, is she very successful with it? And it's just like, well, and like, it's a windfall benefit to me, I don't know. I think still, if Mia Khalifa was my daughter, I wouldn't be like shouting that from the rooftops or anything, even, or the other person you mentioned. So I think I'm still going to go with the vegan son, which, veganism's okay. It's not that bad. It's just when they're real, like proselytizing, kind of evangelical about it. The the ones that are spreading their faith, oh, they're so annoying. But people that are actually doing the vegan diet properly, I don't have a problem with them, really.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I don't think I couldn't deal with it. Like just I end up raising a soy boy, and he's got lower bone density, and then he gets into a fight, and he shatters a rib because someone body slammed him.
Snap because they're so brittle.
Yeah. So
Well,
you
I raised some sons, and they're all carnivores, so it's can be done right, I guess.
here, here. So wait, you don't know who Sydney Sweeney is?
No, not really.
Really?
I'm not really into that sort of thing. That's not. I know Mia Khalifa because
Oh,
she's in political news because she keeps talking about like Palestine this or whatever, which is interesting. People are getting their political opinions from a porn star, but whatever. But other than that, I don't really know who she is.
for the record, Sydney Sweeney, she's not a porn star. She is
Oh,
a actress. She
I,
happens to
I
be
don't.
like they're just like plastering her everywhere. Like she's on this talk show, that talk show. She's all over socials. Got a couple
I
new
don't.
movies coming out.
Dude, I'm old. I don't pay attention to pop culture anymore.
Uh, so you recently just went to Iceland. So
Yes.
are the reports that I'm getting from the ground where there's just massive volcanoes everywhere like actually true? Like how bad is it over there?
They are not massive, but they're numerous. So I actually, while I was heading to Iceland last time, I got to see a volcano like close up. Not only I was one of the first people to see it, it erupted while I was in the air. So when we were landing, we heard an announcement from the pilot, and he was basically like, "Ladies and gentlemen, look to your right." And when we looked out there, it was a straight up volcano. So I got to the airport. I went into 66 degrees north, which is like an Icelandic outerwear company, bought the biggest, heaviest coat I could, and just ran out. And as soon as I got out of the airport, you could just see the volcano right there off the road. It was amazing. And I got as close as I could to it, and it was really really cool. Like there are many Icelanders that haven't seen a volcano that fresh. I couldn't actually get all the way up to it, like you see in some of the videos where you like can basically walk up to the lava because the lava flow literally ran over the road that would take you to that volcano. It like completely
Jesus.
blocked it. So yeah, I was really mad because I got to the road and the cops stopped us, and I was like, "Hey, what's the big deal? I'm gonna look at it." They're like, "You literally can't go that way because of the lava." I'm like, oh.
Isn't
But
there like isn't there like a certain amount of people that die every year because they get so close and they get misted
oh
by lava?
no, that never happened. So we've had, I think, two recorded fatalities in Iceland in the last 1,100 years, and it's
Yeah.
usually like a flying rock or something hit somebody in the head. But volcanoes are not as deadly as you see in the movies. So, and these volcanoes that are happening right now in the Reykjanes Peninsula, they're little babies, man. They're not big ones. Now, there is one that we're really worried about that we're paying attention to. It's a volcano called Katla. And Katla is one of those uh, exploding volcanoes. So, like, if you're anywhere near Katla when it goes off, it'll turn you to a pink mist. But Katla will basically, I mean, it'll probably ground Europe again like it did in 2011, where Eyjafjallajökull went and you couldn't fly an airplane in Europe for 3 months. Katla is far worse. So they may have to evacuate the entire island if she goes off, and she is overdue by at least 10 years.
Oh
So
wow.
these ones right here, they're kind of like a creek in the woods. Katla's more like the Amazon River in comparison. So these ones right here are just nice little tourist attractions. But yeah, people are very worried about it. They're like, oh, are you worried about the volcano getting you? It's like the lava moves like that fat. It's not going to get you. Like it's
What's that
fine.
what's that old movie Dante's Peak?
Dante's
Wherever
Peak, and there was another like volcano disaster movie in
I think it's
'97 where
I think it's called Volcano and like they're
yeah,
like
yeah, I
putting the
think it is
barriers
too.
there and it's like
Yeah, with the
everyone's freaking
volcano,
out.
the lava's like a river coming at you. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. It's not that. The only real danger with the volcano is the gases, because sulfuric acid will come out and settle in like depressions, and if you breathe in sulfuric acid, it's fatal. So, but those are usually gas-heavy volcanoes, and in Iceland, they won't let you anywhere near one of those. Like when Eyjafjallajökull erupted, you couldn't go near that thing. It was so ash heavy. But these right here, they're just little campfires, man. You can just roast your marshmallows over and it's fine.
Yeah.
So, and we're expecting actually another one within probably hours, if not, days at most. So
Mm.
these things are just going to keep happening. So
Sounds like a nice family friendly adventure for some s'mores on a
I
volcano.
would, oh yeah, I had a great time, man. It was super cool seeing that in person. And it's corny to say, but like videos and pictures do not do it justice. Seeing it in real life is just completely different.
Yeah. So when you went there for a powerlifting meet, right?
So I was going just to see family. My grandmother is actually going to a nursing home, so I wanted to see her before they shipped her off. And I saw that Magnus Magnuson was, he is, for those that don't know, he was one of our best strongmen. He won the world's strongest man title like 4 times back in the '90s. So the guy's a complete legend. and he was hosting a powerlifting meet. And as you know, I retire from powerlifting pretty much twice a year. But when I saw that meet, I was like, I've been in this sport for 20 years, and I've never competed in Iceland, and I'm an Icelander. That's just ridiculous. So I decided just to sign up for it and go for it. And it was an interesting experience. The Icelanders definitely do things differently than the Americans. So, like, one of the things that was really striking for me is the warm up room culture was so different. They, for example, would not allow you to spot warm up squats. They just wouldn't let you do it. There was a guy that he actually beat me. I was second overall. This guy won, and he was an absolute unit. Guy named Thomas Darre, and Thomas Darre was warming up with 605. And this is not in a cage. This is like open rack. There's nothing but you, the bar, and the floor. And I instinctively, of course, went over there to the side spot, and they yelled at me. They're like, "No, we don't do that here." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I guess it's one of those. It's either some sort of machismo thing, or they feel like that if you need a spot in the warm up room, you're going too heavy. Another thing were the commands, which were absolutely hilarious to me. So in powerlifting, you have to do wait for judges to give you commands. So like on the bench press, they tell you to start, they tell you to press, and then tell you to rack. It's real important to follow those commands, or you'll not get a good lift. In Iceland, it was byrja, pressa, tilbaka. It was just like ah. And Icelandic is a very kind of soft language. It's not like German that's very forceful, like Scheiße. It's very like, yeah, it's kind of like an elf language. So it was kind of funny to hear the judges use those little soft commands for such a hardcore sport. But it was just overall really great experience. And it was just nice to meet a lot of the people that I've been following over the years. They kind of all congregated there. They had no idea who I was. They were actually pretty confused because they were like, who are you? Why are you so old? I was the oldest guy by 10 years, actually.
Oh, wow.
And why are your lifts like second highest? Like, what the hell's going on here? Then once I explained it to them, I was like, yeah, I've been in the sport for 20 years. They're like, oh, okay.
So they
So yeah,
definitely
it
know
makes
who
it.
you are now.
They know who I am now. Absolutely. Actually, when I post stuff on Instagram, I'm seeing all kinds of like Icelandic names that are like following my stuff now, which is really cool. It was a good thing. It made me feel more complete as an Icelander, if that makes sense.
That makes
So
sense.
like one with my people. So it was a really cool experience. I'd love to
The,
do it again.
the prodigal son returns.
Yes, I was walking with a volcano and everything, fireworks.
uh, so we look at when you look at the fitness industry as it's presently going and its trajectory, especially in terms of weight loss, do you think we as an industry have made it too complicated by the nature of our individuality as far as like what we're providing for the general population as far as advice?
Yes. So when you go online, especially, and you try to find, like, and I have a lot of people do this, they go online, they're trying to find information, it's all over the place. Like, there is no like core set of beliefs in this industry that ties everything together. And people have really strong opinions about different things. They get latched on, like veganism, for example. You have people that just absolutely worship on the altar of veganism. Everything's vegan. You can't talk to these people about anything else. And same thing with the carnivore people. You have people that believe cardiovascular training is the end all and be all. You have people like me that believe strength training is it's all over the place. And really, we have more in common than than we have things that we disagree with. But we can't just seem to kind of nail down the basics, especially as far as weight loss. And the basics are really simple. You need to eat less than you're burning, and you need to move around more, and you need to build muscle mass and bone density. That's it. And you can do that in a lot of different ways, but essentially the goal is the same. We need to move more and eat less. And we love complicating this. And when I tell people this, like, it's like they don't even believe me. It's just like, no. If you just eat less than you burn, then you lose weight. That's it. All these different things that we do are just different strategies to do that.
Yeah, you know what it is, right? It's those pesky hormones, I tell you.
Oh yeah.
Those seed oils.
Oh yeah, yeah, the hormones. They definitely change the laws of thermodynamics, right? I can't lose weight because of these hormones. It's like, well, if you stay in a deficit long enough, you'll lose weight. I
Yeah.
don't care what your hormones are doing.
Do you think when we mention like the extremes of the spectrums, I think one of the ones people are into most are vegans and carnivores.
Yes.
Do you think the severity of one created the other, similar to other two-party systems that we have going on in the
Kind
world
of.
today?
Yeah, actually, that's not a crazy idea. So the when you see the carnivore people and vegan people go at it, it's almost like two political parties.
Yeah.
And the reality is, the optimal diet is somewhere in between. Like with the carnivore diet, there are some people that benefit from it. Same thing with the vegan diet. There are some people with autoimmune disorders and things that do really well with it. However, like fiber is good. So is B12 vitamin. Like all these things are good. And I'm kind of in the middle. I'm all like, let's do both. Vegetables and fruits are good. Meats are good. So let's just, why do we have to pick one? And most people that do these diets don't even do them correctly. So vegans, for example, end up very protein deficient. They eat a lot of processed stuff. And if you're going to do a proper vegan diet, man, you're going to be soaking beans all day long because that's going to be your main protein source. Carnivore, same thing. A lot of people love eating like the select cuts of meat. If you're going to do carnivore right, you need to do organs, you need to do like hooves and all that stuff. I mean, you need to eat the entire animal. You can't just eat like the ribeye and be, that's okay. That's enough. You have to eat all the other things or you don't get a lot of those critical nutrients. Of course, the solution to this is to eat a variety of both. And since we can go to a grocery store at all times to get everything, there's no reason why we have to choose one over the other. Like you look at my people in Iceland for the longest time, we didn't have a lot of crops there. So we just didn't have a lot of choices as far as vegetables and fruit and stuff. Like my grandmother ate an orange for the first time, I think, when she was like 35. like
Wow.
like she had never, yeah, I mean, it's my parents got fruit once a year around Christmas when they got shipments from Spain. That's it. But and they're, of course, they were fine, they survived off that, but they also did that for generations. So but it's, does that mean that fruit's bad? No, it doesn't mean it's bad. We have it available 24/7. But people love to latch onto these extremes for some reason. And when you go middle of the road, it seems to like bore people. like, oh,
Yeah.
omnivorous diet, balance, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like, where's the excitement? Where's the pizzazz, man? It's like there is none. Like the path towards
Yeah.
success is boring. It just
Yeah.
is.
So I look at it and I see in the topic that we're talking about, like social media and the need to be viral has warped every single
Yes.
industry imaginable. So it's not enough anymore to be like, hey, I'm just a regular guy and I have this regular balanced diet. And here are my
Mhm.
three priorities, which are water, sleep, and protein.
Right.
Uh, and like, no, it's got to be like, this is the worst thing of all time. And I'm the only one that can save your life. Let's
You
go,
have to
brother.
eat
And like,
only fruit. It's like, whoa.
yeah. And and I think like you look at how this plays out 4 years down the road, and maybe the world kind of changed in 2020 when everyone had all this time for themselves. Excuse me. You've seen people on extreme vegan diets die. You've seen people on exotic fruit diets only. They've died from malnutrition.
Yes.
Um, I haven't seen many, but I'm sure it's happened. Someone on a carnivore diet that just wasn't the right diet for them. I'm sure that someone has died that way as well. And like it's when you're so far from the median, you see like this extreme behavior, and then it turns into things like you have as an example like Paul Saladino, right? Who very smart in his own right. He's a very intelligent individual. I'm sure he's helped a lot of people, change a lot of lives. But some of his content, like he'll go into like a Chipotle and like yell at the cashier at Chipotle for talking about like you have seed oils in your bowls. Oh my god! And it's like a 20-year-old kid who's just like
Yeah.
working, and it's like, dude, like what are we doing here? Or he goes to the grocery store and it's the same thing there. And I mean, there's examples
Yeah.
for everyone, like all
and,
over the
and
place.
it's all for attention is what it is. I mean, it's like I was saying, what is correct often is boring. It doesn't have a lot of pizzazz. I liken this to, I was talking to a client of mine years ago. He was a financial guy, very successful. Like if you didn't have at least like $100 million to work with, he wouldn't even bother with you. But he would tell people all the time what he'd do because his return was like 12% or better, which is astounding. And it's like, what do you do? It's like, well, I invest in global index funds and I don't invest in countries that I can't pronounce or end in stan. That's my secret. And people, like people ask me, like, but what do you really do? It's like, no, that's it. It was so plain and boring that they wouldn't do it. I mean, he would literally tell people the secrets to his success, but because it wasn't, sexy enough, they wouldn't do it. And I feel like the fitness industry is the same way. So unless you
Yeah,
have some sort of like, flair to what you're doing or make it extreme or something, people just don't, it doesn't catch their eye, it doesn't pop up on their algorithm. And it's unfortunate because I don't know, it's doing people a disservice. Like you were talking about people dying from these diets. We're having an epidemic in Iceland of people going into organ failure, like young people in their 20s, because they're mega dosing supplements. So, they're like, okay, vitamins and all these things and supplements are good for you. So let me go ahead and take 10 times as much as my body needs, and that'll be even better for you. No, they end up with liver failure and kidney failure and stuff. There's one of my dad's friends actually destroyed his liver doing that, like just taking all
Yeah.
these vitamins. So it's because everything has to be extreme now, extreme. So and it can be kind of dangerous. So balance is where it's at.
It's wild too that that's a thing because about 70 to 75% of that industry, supplement industry, is bullshit completely.
Oh, garbage. Remember years ago when I forget what company it was, but they went in the major brands and tested the actual supplements, and
Yep.
most of them didn't even contain what they said they did. So
Yeah.
like it was just
There's the,
absolute nonsense.
the odd thing is so there's an organization called the NSF, and they test supplements to, for their purity and stuff like that. Only 30% of all products sold are actually viewed by them. Everything else they're allowed to just say whatever they want in it.
Oh, there's no regulation whatsoever. I mean, you can go in, create a supplement company, put nothing but like cornstarch in there, and you're good to go. Like there's no regulatory agency that comes in and tests it, nothing. So there's a lot of trust there, and of course, a lot of that trust is being violated because it's kind of hard to tell if something is fake. Like if you have a painkiller, for example, you're getting a drug and it's fake, like immediately that it's fake because the pain is still there, you still feel it. With a supplement, because the effects are long term and they're not that apparent, you can't really tell either way. So if it is fake, you don't notice anything. Same thing with like any drug, an antidepressant or anything. If it's not real, you'll know very quickly. But if your magnesium is fake, you can't really tell, especially if you haven't like used these supplements before. You just have no idea. So
Yeah,
it's
it's funny.
it's a real violation of trust, and I'm not a big fan of the supplement industry. I usually tell people the the most I'll do personally as far as vitamins is I'll supplement vitamin D from a company that I trust, because this vitamin D is one of those things you can't really get from your food. Same thing with magnesium. Magnesium, you're supposed to be able to get it from your food supply, but our food supply is so deficient of it that I think like 80% of people that take magnesium blood tests come to be deficient. So those two are the really only ones I do. I try to get everything else from my diet. So these people that are taking these multivitamins, yeah, you're probably not getting nearly what you need. It's a false sense of security, unfortunately.
Yeah. And also, it's funny you mentioned like antidepressants and the SSRIs. A lot of those must be fake because looking around the world these days, y'all are bugging. Like y'all have lost your mind like completely. So that's definitely a topic for another day. But like when you want
Yeah.
to like really dive into like, hey, what are we actually like ingesting? Like,
Right. How effective are these? Because when you compare SSRIs to like behavioral therapy or just, exercising and moving around and getting some sunshine, they don't really come out much better at all. So, but yeah, that's not really my field of expertise, but
yeah,
still, I have strong opinions about these things. You feel depressed, go outside, move around, stop eating like a fat kid, you'll feel
yeah.
better. Like your depression will go away, I promise.
I've been depressed all the time, and I usually just like let me go to the gym and like be angry, and then
Yes.
voila.
Right.
And but
Right.
and also Australia. Covered this topic before on the podcast. Australia did a study that proved that exercise is more effective than antidepressants.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of studies like that that come out at least as well, if not better. So it's just like, and all the side effects from exercise are positive. So there you go.
Yeah, it's an insane thing that we have so many conditions that are positively influenced by the fitness industry or participation in some form of fitness, and you never see it recommended. Like you don't see a commercial that's like go to the gym. You know what I
No,
mean?
the
It's
the problem is, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. Big medical and big pharma doesn't make money off exercise. They just don't. Like if you take someone that's on like 7 different medications, you clean up their diet, you get them moving, they get off the medication. They stave off expensive surgeries they'll need down the road. Well, if everyone does that, I mean, a lot of people in the industry will go broke. I mean, there's not a lot of money to be had right there. And I mean, I make money off of it, but that's about it. So there seems to be a conflict of interest with the pharmaceutical and the medical industry when it comes to that, which is why a lot of doctors, when you talk about diet and exercise, their attitude is like, ah, it's kind of voodoo, man. You should just take pills. And it's just like, yeah, that's your recommendation is just take harsh medications. Like I have clients that are on medications that I just don't even understand. Like I have a guy
Yeah.
right now, and I've dealt with this quite a bit. He's on a statin right now, and the statin is really negatively affecting his quality of life, which statins have a lot of negative side effects. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I get that if you have hyperlipidemia and your cholesterol's through the roof, it's one of those last resort type deals. But this guy's cholesterol is like under 200. They just put him on it just in case. And I even asked him, "Do you have a family history of heart disease?" No, not really. Then why are we putting him on these powerful? This happens all the time. Drugs that have real serious side effects and consequences, and they're just handing it out willy nilly. And when I suggest something, they're like, "Well, my doctor told me to take this," and I'm like, "Did you get a second opinion?" And also, like, if think a little bit, like if your levels aren't even clinically in the high zone at all, like why? Just say no. I mean, I don't understand. Clean up your diet, exercise, do something. Because I had a problem a few years ago actually, where my cholesterol went way high. So I was took a little break from the fitness industry, and I was working in EMT transport. So I was sitting a lot. There was a lot of eating at sheets because at 3 in the morning you don't make very good choices or whatever. And my cholesterol got up to almost 400. It was like my LDL by itself was like 310. So my
Wow.
primary was like, dude, we need to put you on drugs. That's horrendous. And I told him, I was like, look, I'm going to try to do this the right way. I really need to, try to clean up my diet, get my steps up, and just see if I can do this the natural way. And he thought I was out of my mind. 6 months later, I was down like 20, 30 pounds, and my cholesterol was at 210. So six
Yeah.
months. And it was just modest changes. It was getting my steps from 3,000 to 10,000 every day. It was not going to sheets and eating, ding dongs and full sugar monsters and stuff. And
Mm.
that did the trick. It really did. And also, sleeping during the day and working during the night is not really good for you. I'm sure that contributed as well. So going back to a daytime schedule. But within 6 months, I cut it in half just like that. So, um, and that was a choice I made. He really wanted to be on there. I was just like, no, I want to do this, but the right way. And a lot of people feel like they don't have that power. And I'm not saying don't do what your doctor tells you, but be your own best advocate, because it seems like a lot of these physicians are just they're treating numbers, just handing out pills. They're like drug dealers,
Yeah.
and
I have a
it's I don't for a lot of people I don't get it. I don't get why they're doing this to these people.
I've got a couple stories on that. So it's funny that you mentioned, your personal journey with that. In the 8 years now that I've been a trainer, I have never had a client who met me was on pressure medication, and by the time that we were done, still needed their pressure medication.
Yeah,
A
bingo,
100% of the people
bingo.
that have come to me while
That's
on
right.
that medication, within 6 months to about 8 months, I get an update like, "Hey, I met with my primary. They told me it's not necessary for me to be on this anymore."
Right. And a lot
Every
of
single
people I
person in
have,
8 years.
they'd start getting lightheaded because when your blood pressure goes down to normal and you take anti-blood pressure medication, you'll like pass out. So I have people that like, they can't stand up quickly without passing out. And I was like, that's because your blood pressure is now low. So, I wouldn't tell them to get off the meds. You never ever just get off the meds because you feel like it. Once you're on them, the physician needs to regulate that. But that's one of the signs with blood pressure medication is if you don't need them anymore, they're going to drop your blood pressure too low. And that's a problem too. So, but yeah, and that's not even that hard to do. As soon as you get people moving around and getting them eating at least somewhat like they're supposed to, a lot of these conditions correct themselves. I mean, I've learned in college at ECU, our motto was exercise is medicine, and it really is.
For sure. A funny story too, what you're talking about with physicians and how they're treating clients and essentially being drug dealers. And again, I have a lot of friends that are physicians, doctors. This is by no means medical advice. This is just our opinions on in
Correct.
a field that we have expertise in, and we've worked with various different people. I recently started a client fresh off of a knee surgery
Mhm.
at the beginning of the year. So far, we're down around about 11, 12 pounds just from diet and exercise alone. Right. So obviously, if you have your knee replaced, you need to then go and have, weight loss is going to help you on your way back to recovery. During the prep for the surgery, she was prescribed Ozempic to
Ah,
help that problem, as opposed to, hey, just clean up your diet a little bit. And it's not like her diet was terrible, but there were some things that could be improved, which we've been working on. And the plan was to jump on Ozempic because that's going to be the easy way for you to lose weight from a primary care. And this client is not obese whatsoever. So
okay.
uh,
So that's important information too. So
they can still move. They could work out prior to the surgery. They actually have been working out prior to the surgery. Not that there wasn't room for improvement like we all have. However, that was like the game plan. Like, hey, let's get you a little bit lighter. Here's a prescription for Ozempic.
So I have an overall positive view over the semaglutides. And reason being, if you look at the whole, like our entire society, everyone, and you look at their, your body fat percentage or BMI, whatever you want to use, we are kind of failing as the fitness industry. We're not really putting a dent in this problem. So I'm very open-minded to other options. And these semaglutides, from what I've seen, work very, very, very well. So that doesn't mean I think that semaglutides are appropriate for everyone. For example, like your client, if she's not even really overweight, then what what are we doing here? Versus someone that's maybe 100, 200, 300 pounds overweight. Now we're talking about using semaglutides as a substitute for bariatric surgery, which I'm for. Because I've had, you probably have too, I've had a lot of bariatric patients. I have one right now. And
Yep.
there are a lot of complications with the surgery. It's not an easy procedure. It's not an easy recovery. And it's not an easy life. They end up with a lot of issues like malabsorption issues. There's a lot of gastrointestinal problems that happen. I mean, it definitely works. It does its thing, but it's not a magic bullet, but it has a lot of side effects. Versus if you look at Ozempic, the side effects are fairly manageable. Like nausea is a big one. Some of these like side effects of the drug, I feel like are not really related to the drug. And I'll give you an example. I have a client who's a nurse at WakeMed, and one of her coworkers was prescribed Ozempic. She had like 15 pounds to lose. So now that she doesn't feel hungry, she'll go through a whole shift where all she eats is lettuce and gummy bears. So like her diet, I mean, she's basically Ozempic just created a case of anorexia, and she was obviously not educated on this because look, just because you don't have cravings for hunger doesn't mean you don't still need calories and protein and fats and things. You do. But a lot of people that didn't have the discipline not to eat when they were hungry also don't have the discipline to eat when they don't feel hungry. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is one of those things where I think if we are going to prescribe Ozempic to people, it needs to be there needs to be like an education component to it, like bariatric surgery. Because when you get bariatric surgery, they don't just go in there and cut you up. You have to take classes on nutrition, behavioral therapy, all this stuff as part of that program. Versus these drugs, they're just like handing them out. Here's a shot, good luck, and not really educating people on like the basics. Like, hey, you still need a certain amount of food to maintain yourself, or else you're just basically starving yourself to death, which is obviously not good. So I think the drugs being kind of unfairly maligned because of that. And that's not really the drug problem. That's more the approach of the provider problem. And also, I think it's being grossly overprescribed. Like, if you're not in the obese category, I don't think this drug is an appropriate choice, honestly. So that's, I've seen obviously quite a bit of it out there, and some people are just like, "Ooh, you should stop taking that because you look like a skeleton right now. Like you're not eating anything." You basically
Yeah.
that's anorexia in a vial right there for some of these
Yeah.
people, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think it's a very promising approach because again, the obesity rates right now are keep moving up, and there seems to be nothing putting a dent into it. Like if you look at the gym industry, for example, what not even 10% of people have a gym membership. It's like single digit, and of those that have a membership, only a certain small percentage of them actually show up, and of those that show up, only a small percentage of them actually get anywhere. Like we're not putting a dent in it, unfortunately. And I'm saying this for someone that's in the fitness industry and loves it. Like this is my life. This is all I do. This is my passion, And I'm saying that like we really have not succeeded in our mission, at least not as of right now.
I love the stance that you just took. Um,
I'm glad
I've
you
tried
glad you
to.
did.
I've some of what I'm about to say is going to differ from what you just said. However, the macro lens view that the fitness industry has failed society is I 100% agree with. As an industry, we are getting fucking smoked by the weight loss drugs and the pharmaceutical companies.
Oh yeah.
A lot of it is like what we talked earlier about the overcomplication. There's so many trainers, period. It's so the barrier for entry to our industry is
None.
is just nothing. It's
Like
like
your
a
your
cobbler.
grandma could be a trainer by next week. It just doesn't matter.
Oh, absolutely. Dude, and even with the way things are going right now, we could have chat GPT trainers. You have these cookie cutter programs. And I mean, like we all know, even those of us that are specialized, like if you take someone who's never worked out and you stimulate them in any way, there will be some response,
Oh
right?
yes,
So like
the
there's
legendary honeymoon phase, yeah, of exercise.
yeah, always. And like, I miss those days. I mean, it's been like 10 years for me to be in that stage, but we've failed society as a whole. And you look at the obesity rates and all that stuff, and you see that coming to fruition. And I personally, with the exception of specific in like coaches, where it's like I'm training specifically for a marathon or a powerlifting meet or a bodybuilding show, or I'm injured and I need to come back and like that PT road of movement and stuff like that. I think it'll be destroyed within the next 10 years, barring the specificity from those, because the weight loss drugs are going to get too good, right? So right now you can expect about a 20% drop in body weight per year from Ozempic, Mounjaro, and
we
you have
can't
Zepbound.
we can't touch that. Like
Yeah,
as trainers, we can't touch that. That
we
is just
can't.
astounding.
Yeah, we can't at all. And I think part of it too, like for us, like we love to shit on it because it's just a good conversation piece. I think largely the reason people don't get what they want to out of the gym, the ones that do show up, is because they don't work hard enough. Effort
Oh
is a
yeah, 100%.
like effort is something that like for some folks needs to be taught. And in my training styles, I try to land that pretty early, but for a lot of us, like there's just not enough effort in the day. So when we look at these weight loss drugs and why they're becoming so popular, and look at everything else and why it's popular. Like why are Netflix TV shows popular? Why is it popular to sit on your ass all day? Like because it's fucking easy and you don't really have to do
Yes.
anything. The sweat equity, right, is way less. So like the optimist in me believes our industry can, fight back and make some kind of headway as people start to run into some of the issues which I'm about to list. The pessimist in me, or the realist, invests in Eli Lilly stock and Novager stock. Shout out if you've seen those stock charts for the last year. Shout out to you. You're holding a bag right now.
Novo
But
Nordisk.
you see, and there's a new one. So Viking Therapeutics is now in the ring, and theirs just broke a trial and is better than all of them. So this is only going to keep
Yeah, it's called
growing.
like terzapatide or something like that. I've seen that. It acts on two different things versus the one with the semaglutide. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a burgeoning industry. Yeah, I think right now that semaglutides is like a percentage of the Danish GDP because Novo Nordisk is a Danish company. There's like a percent of their entire economy that is just selling weight loss drugs mainly to Americans. It's amazing. Like the
it's
money is
also
astounding.
if you take Nvidia out of the stock market, it's also carrying ours as well. Some of the things that people are running into, and here's the thing that's wild, right? So Eli Lilly, for one, has Zepbound. So Zepbound also functions on tirzepatide. Viking Therapeutics, they're still in trial phase, so they haven't named their drug yet. But for
Mm,
Eli Lilly, it's Zepbound. It got approved
that's
for the
right. Yeah, yeah,
FDA.
that's right.
They got approved by the FDA in November, and in Q4 sold $200 million in revenue for that. To throw some numbers out at you, right? So year over year, Novodrisk, who makes Eli Lilly and Wegovy, they're up 38% year over year sales for a total of 33.8 billion. 55% of their total revenue from a pharmaceutical company was Wegovy and Ozempic.
Hmm.
Eli Lilly had a 28% increase in Q4. Mounjaro, which is the one that's been around all year, had 2.2 billion. Zepbound, again, on only about 8 weeks of data, had about $200 million in sales, which is absolutely insane. So for me, I look at like who's taking it and all this stuff, and I see I see like adults that just, you're too far gone. We cannot help you, right? So maybe you can get
Right.
some kind of peace with some weight loss. Obviously, there's like the you have the morally gray area where these drugs are made for people who have diabetes. Although they're starting to evolve them a little bit where there's just weight loss. But they're for diabetes. So you have people who are like back ordered on diabetes meds, which is, it's just typical capitalist America. Where I draw the line, right? So if you're age 40 to 65 and you're on Ozempic because maybe that's the last straw for you, maybe you just, in your heart of hearts, you're not going to go to the gym. You're not going to expend effort. Nothing is changing. You're too comfortable. Fuck it. Do your thing. Live and let live. The FDA's approved it for children 12 and up.
Huh.
My issue with it is childhood obesity is on the rise. We also have childhood diabetes on the rise. About 9 in 10 cases of diabetes are preventable, right? We know that much from science. It's a fact. So
Specifically type 2. So
yeah.
type
So
2 is almost, in my opinion, 100% preventable. But
we talked earlier about the population of Iceland,
mhm,
right? What was that number again?
390,000.
Currently, as of last estimates, 350,000 children and teens under the age of 20 have been diagnosed with diabetes in our country. That is almost the population of Atlanta. That is almost the population of Kansas City. That is almost the population of, what's the third one? Iceland. That was the other one that I was
Yeah,
thinking of, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The
that
entire
is
country.
absolutely fucking absurd. And you see people, some of the pushback to the weight loss drugs is once I get off the drugs, all the weight comes back. Well, obviously, if you go for an extended period of time not being hungry and suddenly you're hungry and we never taught you how, you're going to just go back to what you've always done. You're going to do what's normal. You're like, oh my God, where's all this hunger coming from? And I think it's just a dangerous road to go down where we know what the current state of adults are and as far as like how they're like 70% of them are obese, about 40% are overweight. I just made a new term, obese, overweight. Then you
Sounds like
have
the
like
next
within that,
level.
yeah, like 30.
Have like a
Oh man.
BMI of like 80, just like, okay, that's just, you're over beast, sir.
Oh fuck. And you have a 34% of that population, right, being obese, and now we have children that are being obese, and like
Mhm.
that's like we want to look at it and be like, oh my God, this is an epidemic, this is bad, this is horrible, and like this is failed fucking parenting strategies because you didn't teach anyone, and it starts with the educational system, right? Nutrition isn't really taught. Doctors don't even have to take nutritional courses. I'm sure some do because they'd like the knowledge,
It's a
but
survey course, but it's in and out, man. It's all in
yeah.
pre-med.
And so now we're telling like the future of our civilization relies on the fact that we're going to start injecting all these children with weight loss drugs and never teach them how to actually eat correctly.
Right.
And then they will, by the time they're 30, 25, 30, they're going to be withered away and look like they're like a frail 60-year-old. Like it is the most absurd way that we're like approaching this thing, which is insane. And those of you that say like, oh my God, like I got off Ozempic and it's now, all the weight came back. Guess what? There's a new version of it that they're working on that resequences your genes to prevent it from ever coming back,
Hmm.
which is wild.
And not only hunger, but also cravings for other things, smoking, alcohol, drugs. It's pretty wild stuff. And what are the long-term consequences of that? I don't know. I know people that, and I've heard about this with these drugs, they didn't want to get on them because if you take away hunger, you take away something that gives them a lot of fulfillment in life. And that's another thing that's something that we don't really want to deal with, which is the addictive nature of food. So when you look at someone that's overweight, that's, they have a few pounds to lose, okay, they're maybe let themselves go a little bit, whatever, no big deal. But when you see someone that's, 5, 6, 7, 8, 900 pounds, which I have up close and personal, that's something, man. You're looking at basically a food alcoholic, somebody that
Yeah.
takes just pleasure off. And then they've done studies on this where people that are super morbidly obese, when they eat, the same pleasure center lights off in the brain that meth head gets when they take a hit of meth. So these people actually won't take the drug because it takes away something that gives them so much fulfillment. Them having that craving and filling that hole is what drives them. So it's that's
Yeah.
another caveat. But what you're saying with kids, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. I actually got into this because of kids. This whole thing. My internship in my undergrad was youth strength and conditioning, and I opened a gym with my brother that specialized in youth strength and conditioning. So I dealt with kids that were 9, 10, 11 years old that never went outside in the summertime, and they'd come in July pasty white with a nick, scratch, or bruise on their shins. And what we're failing is not just parenting, it's not just the school, the entire culture is failing these kids. And unfortunately, that's what it's going to have to take to change our attitude towards children. Like, for example, if I take a kid and I have them eat a normal omnivorous diet like you or I would eat, people would look at that as there's something wrong with it. I was like, oh, why are you putting that kid on a diet? He should eat like a kid. What's eating like a kid to them? Eating ice cream and candy and macaroni and cheese and just bullshit. And I'm like, that kid has more needs for nutrients than you do. Like he or she needs that stuff more than you. Like they should be eating more fruits and vegetables than you. Like when you're an adult, you can get away with not having those for a while. Kids, it's critical to have these things for their development, and we're ending up with malnourished, deformed children basically because they're growing up without critical nutrients that they're supposed to get. And you're not going to fix that by giving them a shot. You're just not. And what really drives me nuts with kids is we have 100% control over what kids are eating. When they're at school, you eat what's at school. And what are we serving at school? B grade slop, just
Yep.
garbage. Why? Like this school is supposed to be educating kids on how to become productive adults. That's the whole idea. How to function in society as an adult and taking care of yourself as one of them. Right now, there's no physical education. The lawyers have made sure of that. The food they feed them is slop, and it's just like, what are we doing? Like, why are it doesn't make sense to me. And the cost issue, I think, is moot because there was, I remember there's one school district, it was in the news some years ago, where they just said, to hell with this slop. We're just going to get like locally grown, good, healthy foods. And they did. And they fed the kids that, and their test scores went up, and the kids' waistlines went down. Everything was great. And in the end, they didn't spend much more money than if they got the government approved, like, D grade food slop. And I'm just all like, so if you do it right, it takes a little bit of effort, but you can get high quality food to these children, make them move around, and solve this problem very quickly. And that was one thing I noticed when I worked with kids. Man, you could take a 9-year-old that's in horrible shape and turn it around in like 6 months. Kids are very plastic like that. Like you could really do a lot in a short amount of time, which was very I found very satisfying actually. Like I'd take kids that were just basically little butterballs, man, and like a year and a half later they were studs, and that was awesome. And you can do that
Yeah.
with the kid. It doesn't is as much easier, and you have control over it. That's the thing. These kids can't make decisions. They can't drive to McDonald's. They can't decide what's in their pantry. We as a society have this control, and we just for some reason we don't want to exert it, and I don't understand why. But we're going to give them shots. That's fine. Like
Yeah.
what? Like I'm against that. I really am. I don't think this is the right approach.
I saw a video, speaking to what you're saying about control. I forgot who posted it or how it reached my timeline. Because I largely try not to follow the NPCs of the world. If,
Same.
if you're insulted by that, I'm not sorry.
You're
It's a
probably
real
an
thing.
NPC.
Yeah. And it was this young lady. She was like, plate my 1-year-old's, or it was like the 3-year-old's plate with me, and she took a fucking glazed donut and she put it on the plate and she started cutting it into like 8 pieces. And while she's doing it, she's out of breath. Now, I don't want to judge. By all means, if that's the way that if that's how you're living life, by all means, go ahead. But the child is 3, and then she puts a packet of applesauce. And I mean, this isn't a regular glazed donut that you can get from Dunkin' or Starbucks. Something. This was like a significant one. Like this thing had some girth to it.
Right.
Like, and then puts applesauce on the plate, and then goes over to the kid, and she's like, "Hey, here you go." And like you could hear her like huffing and puffing, like she's exerting some kind of effort, God forbid, and gives it to the kid, and that's the kid's only choice. And you can tell the kids at an age where like they don't have really reason or logic, and like you said, they have no control over what they're doing.
Right.
And she just that's what she's fed as her breakfast, which again is like a major problem. Also, I was watching Squawk Box the other day, and they had the Kellogg CEO on, and
Oh
they were
yeah,
talking they were
I
talking about
saw
the
that.
economy, and this motherfucker like with a straight face
Mm.
was like, one of the things that can help with the economy that we're seeing with our customers and our pricing and our packaging, and we're trying to get the most out of it. Start having cereal for dinner.
Cereal for dinner. Yeah.
And it's like, it's bad enough to do it for breakfast. Granted, I'm not, if you have cereal in your diet, I'm not gonna knock you. It's not the best choice. It's not, there are probably better things that you could be eating. There are probably
Yes.
more questions in your diet. However, like dinner's like an important meal. And if you look at most Americans' diets, that's probably the meal that's easiest for most people to eat in some consistency. And it's
Plus,
like, that's,
his point, it doesn't make any sense. Like, for example, I can go to Sam's Club and I can buy a 50-pound bag of rice for
mhm,
$25.
yeah,
Cereal is not nearly that economical. So no, actually, if you buy things in bulk and cook them, it's going to be a lot cheaper than cereal. And not only that, it's going to have actual nutrition in it, which you need, which cereal has none. It is nothing but sugar and filler. And I mean, there's no, of course, they have vitamins listed on the back, but sure. Yeah. I'm sure there's 25% of the daily value of my vitamins in this, Cocoa Puffs or whatever. It's just garbage. And the fact that we're feeding our kids this first thing in the morning or at any point, it's just like, what do you do? Is that really what Junior needs? I mean, he needs like a sugar bomb first thing in the morning. Like it's going to run right through him. First of all, he's going to be hungry within an hour, and two, it doesn't have any of the critical nutrients that he needs. It's like give him like some fruit and an egg, or I mean something he actually this body needs. And people just don't seem to think that way. And I think it's honestly it's a cultural thing. Again, if you are trying to educate children, trying to feed them actual normal foods, there's something wrong with you, which is so like I don't even know how I don't have no idea how you even fix that. It's so backwards to me and is
yeah.
doing a lot of damage. Here's another fun fact. So, right now, in some areas in the US, 75% of our young men are ineligible for combat roles because they're too fat. 3 out of every 4. So, our obesity rate among children and young adults has become a national security issue. Now, in the old Soviet Union, they had the exact opposite problem. 75% were ineligible because they were malnourished. So, we have the exact opposite problem. But like we're literally too fat to fight now. Like what are we doing? Like this just is not a good strategy. And the health consequences from this are severe. And our system's already being strained to the max. And I get it's profitable for the people that deal with this, but it's just like at some point we got to look at it like, okay, it might be profitable for you, like in your particular industry, but if the entire economy is full of people that are too fat to work properly, because people that are very obese tend to be out of work a lot. I mean,
Hey
they're
now,
sick a lot.
fat
Yeah.
phobia,
Oh,
fat phobia.
yeah. Oh,
Uh
yeah.
oh,
I'm
pause the recording. Holy
I'm
shit.
so afraid of people that are obese. They just terrify me. They scare me so much that I've dedicated my life to helping them. I'm so scared of them. But
Oh, I think, yeah, and I think the sad thing is it's so fixable. Uh, and somewhere in the last 10 years, we just got fucking soft as a society. And
more like 20, but yeah, I know what you
yeah,
mean.
and it's like seriously, like it's the same thing you see happen in dogs. Like you see that meme where it's like the dogs used
Yeah,
to hunt and kill
be
things and
wolves.
be wolves, and then now it's like, and then you see the picture of the little dog and he's like, you changed my food and now I have diarrhea. Oh, like,
Yeah.
and it's just like that on like a bigger level. And it's like realistically, like if we're friends and my friend is going down a rabbit hole and it's like, brother, you're obese, like you got to do something about this. Like it's
Yes.
my responsibility, if you're someone in my circle that I love, for me to bring that up to you without
Right.
me fearing backlash. Like if you don't like what I have to say and you're offended by me, I don't give a fuck, quite honestly. However,
Right.
if I care about you, I owe it to you to advise you in a way to improve yourself, which is
Right.
why I'm a
And,
trainer, why I
and
have
that
this.
and that
And
goes
for some
to yeah. We got
no, so and somehow like it backfires and it like explodes in our face and it's like, oh my god, like what are you doing? You're so mean. Like fat phobia, body positivity, and it's like you could be a great human and still be obese. Like
it's
I'm
called
not saying
tough.
you're
It's
a
called
horrible
tough love.
person,
It's tough
but
love is what it is.
I'd
And we're
like you to
so
live longer.
right, and we're adverse to this. So if you look at an actual health campaign that worked, and this was the anti-smoking campaign of the 80s and 90s here in the US. And one thing you'll notice when you're walking around in the US, even in areas where people are not very healthy, you don't see a lot of smoking. Now, if you go to Europe, people have cigarettes in their mouths left and right. And what they did, I don't know if yeah, you're old enough to remember the anti-smoking campaigns. It was negative social pressure. Oh, that's disgusting. Get that out of here. Smoke outside.
Yeah.
If you smoke, you're killing yourself. You're hurting your kids. The pack of cigarettes are like, you're gonna die. You don't buy these. And it was strong negative social pressure, and it worked. Now, what are we doing with obesity? The exact opposite. Oh, being obese is okay. Oh, if you have a problem with obese people, you're fat phobic or whatever. And what are the results of that? The exact opposite. So they call it fat shaming or whatever. My opinion is, if fat shaming actually works, then let's fat shame away. Let's do it. I want to actually help people. And you're not helping people by sparing their feelings, because if you don't hurt their feelings and they die at like 37 from a heart attack. I was like, well, at least his feelings were intact. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. So,
Yeah,
and I mentioned this, people are like, well, smoking's different from eating. I was like, yeah, but it's both an addictive behavior in a lot of ways. So there are a lot of parallels right here. So I think if we took an approach that's not necessarily like, you don't want to like bully people that are obese, but like stuff like that. If you're feeding kids cereal and stuff, be like, what are you doing? Like, what, you trying to kill your kid? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
if you have enough negative social pressure to where people understand that, okay, this is a bad thing to do, overall, culturally, you will see a shift. And I just don't see a will currently. I feel like there's a little bit of a shift right now. The fat acceptance movement is kind of dying down. And I think a lot of it because of these influencers are dying left and right. Have you seen that one meme with the one
yep.
person, like that one dead, this one right here dead? Oh, I'm going to start this podcast. He can't because he's dead. And they're all dying like in their 30s or whatever, which is the reality of this. So we may be seeing a shift towards that. But in the meantime, we're kind of splitting hairs about what tools will be most effective. In the end, we have to agree on where we're going as a society and accept that this movement right now, our waistlines, and it's not just in America, this is around the world. We're not even the fattest nation anymore, not even close. Like the Mexicans are fatter than we are now. So are the Kuwaitis. All the
Well,
Pacific Islanders have, yeah, Kuwait is fatter than the US right now by a lot.
technically, a lot of those Mexicans are here now. And
No,
um,
we get all the skinny ones that work. The fat ones
yeah.
stay behind. Oh, I'm gonna get canceled anyway. But
Oh yeah,
but
I have that thought every day.
all right, that's fine. What are they gonna do to me? Like I'm the guy that's like you'd probably want to go to anyway. Oh, that guy got canceled for being fat phobic. He's probably the guy I'm looking for.
Yeah, right. It's funny you mentioned cigarettes and warning labels and like negative social pressure. When I was in the military, in my squad, we had a kid that was from Brazil, so he would go there often, and he would come back with you'd always buy packs of smokes, and he's come back. So in America, you buy a pack of smokes, you got it says like warning contains fucking whatever the fuck. And nicotine is addictive, right? You got it on the side. He came back, and so ours is like on the side of the box. Theirs is like on the whole front of the box, and it's just like people's organs, like
Yeah,
pictures of
yeah.
people's organs
The
that
the
have
Canadians
been.
did the same thing. It was just basically you bought a pack of cigarette and there was like black lungs on it. People would still
Yeah, and it's
smoke though,
like
but like
it was
yeah,
like half the packaging was that, and it's like,
yeah.
wow, that's a crazy thing. So it's funny to see how other nations handle that, especially with warning labels. But yeah, some things should have like better controls. And the thing that gets me to like how we handle shit, now that we're talking about warning labels, is like, and then you look at our industry and what we're doing, and it's like sugar is the enemy, like rah, like march on sugar. And it's like for a lot of people, like, okay, so let's say like I have a lot of sugar in my diet and my diet's kind of weird, and like I drink regular Coca-Cola all the time. And then I stop drinking regular Coca-Cola and I take Coke Zero because it's very similar in taste and it's got no calories. So I've
I
made a
love some Coke
positive.
Zero.
Yeah, me too. I made a positive change, and then the influencers come in and they're like, "Oh my god, aspartame is gonna fucking kill you." And and it's like, what do you want this person to do? They just eliminated probably
Right.
20% of their sugar intake, and there's no calories in it. Like it's a step in the right direction. And then they fail to mention that aspartame is only dangerous when it's 900 times the recommended dose. So you'd have to
You have to
eat.
drink like a bathtub of the stuff every day to have some of these side
Yeah,
effects. Plus, it's observed in rats. And
yeah,
sometimes things that happen in rats, like we're not rats. You know what I mean? So right now we have what 50 years of data with aspartame. Show me the bodies. Where are all the dead aspartame people? Where are they at? It's been,
yep,
you could, there's definitely enough people drinking the stuff, and there's been enough time where you can see trends. Now, with regular sugar, where are the bodies? Lots of them every year. Like sugar, overconsumption of sugar, overconsumption of calories absolutely kills. It's honestly the biggest killer right now. other than like old age, So it's one of
Yeah.
those things, right? It's, okay, they're not going from drinking, 4 liters of Coke to drinking just water every day. Okay, so what? Like, I don't even do that. Like, I enjoy Coke Zeros, and especially when I'm dieting, Coke Zeros are huge. And if you're fasting, oh my God, Coke Zero is a lifesaver. Let me tell you. I don't think I could do an extended fast without doing that.
So
So,
speaking of extended fasts,
speaking
you
of
actually
extended
just
fast,
did one.
I did pretty recently, actually. So when I came back from Iceland, I felt pretty out of control as far as my diet. I was just trying to get as many calories as I could. So I was drinking McDonald's and Chick-fil-A shakes every day and all that for a while just to try to keep up.
Mm.
And at the end of the meet, I was like, ugh, I feel gross. I need to switch gears. So something I've been doing, this is the second time I've done this, is I'll do a 72-hour fast. So water, black coffee, Coke Zeros, thank God, and salt, and that's it. And I actually like doing this. And there's a couple of reasons I'm really into fasting right now. Not the intermittent stuff. I think that's kind of nonsense. But the actual fast, one for me is it really redirects my thought process. So when you're doing a 3-day fast and not eating, you really got time to think about what you're doing. Like it's, I even did meal prep in the middle of it, which was something, having just piles of food in front of you that you can't eat. It's
Yeah.
an exercise in discipline. It's just like, okay, we're not messing around anymore. And there's also a theory out there as far as there's a process called autophagy. You might have heard this. Autophagy is basically when your body goes in a state of fasting, it starts doing kind of an inventory of your cells and starts kind of recycling the underperforming ones. So there have been studies on people that have done extended fasts, and they found that their organs were 10% smaller permanently afterwards because the body had gone through and kind of metabolized the cells that just weren't doing what they're supposed to do. And there's a theory that this might actually clean up some precancerous cells because right now our cancer rates in the West are astronomical, and it might be that'd be one of the reasons we never actually don't eat, which is kind of the natural condition for humans. I mean, we went through periods of fasting all the time. You had famines, you had shortages. During hunter-gatherer times, a hunt might take 2 or 3 days, and you might not have much to eat during that time. So it's a natural part of the human condition. And now, since we're just shoving food down our face 24/7, when we might be, these cells might be, kind of building up, whereas they wouldn't before. So this is, of course, theoretical. There's no studies. I mean, there are studies on it on animals, and it's inconclusive. But for me, there's a lot of pros to it. Plus, I just like the satisfaction of being able to control my animal urges, my survival urges like that. And it's not easy to do. Fasting is a really interesting process. So it kind of, I do the 3-day fast because I don't get people that do more than that. 3 days is plenty horrible enough. I kind of break it down into 3 phases right now. Day one is pain. So my head hurts, my stomach hurts. I feel bad the entire day. Day two, something really interesting happens to me. So the hunger pangs and the headache all but dissipate. I become manic. So on the second day, and this has happened twice now, I get so much done. My brain is on overdrive. My senses are sharpened. I can hear better. I can smell better. I can see better. It's almost like a kind of a predator response, like, oh, we're starving. You need to go kill something right now. And I get a lot done on that second day. Third day, I call that acceptance. So I'm neither up or down. It's just like my body has accepted that we're going to die. So it just kind of goes into a standby mode. But it's really interesting too, because like I find myself in the middle of the fast, like it's almost like the rest of my brain starts overriding my frontal lobe. So I'll all of a sudden snap out of it, and I'm in the fridge rummaging through. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not eating. I forgot. It's almost like the rest of like the reptilian brain's trying to override the smart part. Like, okay, the smart part's malfunctioning, guys. We need to do something about it. But when I then go into my cutting phase, which I do the bulk and cut lifestyle, that bro life, whatever hunger I feel when I'm dieting is nothing compared to the fast. So it just, for me, it made that process a lot easier. And I felt like I actually got the result I was looking for a lot faster. So, and this goes into with a lot of people, we're talking about like controlling hunger. And right now, even with people that are pretty fit, they get really concerned about feeling hungry. and they have this really negative connotation with the feeling of hunger. And I'm like, that's the wrong way to look at it. If you're dieting, so you're eating fewer calories than you're eating, uh, or you're burning, excuse me, you're going to feel hungry because that's the natural response to being in a caloric deficit. Your body is trying to make up that difference. So if you feel hunger, that's not a bad thing. That actually means what you're doing is working. That is the feeling of success. And when I have people kind of reframe how they view hunger in that way, it changes a lot of things. Because right now, the idea is if you're hungry, oh God, you're hungry. This is so bad. You have to do something about this. This is negative. Why is it negative? Like this is a good natural like feeling. This is what you should be feeling. Like I actually did a consultation with a woman who was significantly overweight. She was over 50% body fat. Very sweet lady, but she was talking about feeling hungry and not feeling hungry. She associates hunger with negativity and her doing bad in a way. And I'm like, it's literally the opposite. So we were doing a consultation, and I'm sure you've done a bunch of these too. I've done probably a couple thousand over the last 15 years. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but do you ask people that are obese, overweight, whether they eat breakfast or not? I do this every time. So
I have them list out the last 24 hours. So usually, yeah. And then, like, if they say that they didn't eat breakfast in the last day, I ask them if that's normal and I'll take it
yeah,
from
yeah,
there.
yeah. So basically, you do. So I asked that specifically. In 15 years of doing this, I have exactly zero people that are, that are obese that have answered yes. I eat a regular breakfast. Zero, not a single one of this whole time. When it comes to underweight people that are trying to gain weight, do they eat breakfast? They're like, oh yeah, never miss it. So it's kind of interesting. But when I told this woman, it's like you need to eat breakfast. She told me it's like, well, if I eat breakfast, I'm just much hungrier by lunchtime. And I told her, good. That means your metabolism is working. That means everything's revving up. That's actually a positive thing. You want to feel that hunger, especially if you're
Yeah.
trying to lose weight. And this is such a contrary like thought process to these people because they've never really heard that before. And I've had some people that have had success with that. Once they reframe that, they're like, okay, I feel a little bit hungry going to bed, which is how you want to feel if you're losing weight. You want to go to bed not starving, not in pain or anything, but kind of like, I'm a little bit hungry, and you want to wake up ravenous. That means everything is moving along nicely. That is a sign of success, not a failure. And I think, again, that's a cultural thing. Right now, like hunger is an emergency that needs to be dealt with. And throughout most of human history, it was. If you were hungry, oh shit, you're in trouble. You better go kill something or find something. But that's just not the reality anymore. So we kind of have to reframe that. But fasting, like I said, I don't recommend this for everyone. It is very difficult to do, but I gotta say, of the clients that I have suggested that have done it, afterwards they've done a lot better with their protocols because it seems like they now have this sense of that they can do this. It's a sense of accomplishment. They can control their impulses, which is something that's very important. Or you can just take Ozempic and make it go away. Either way.
I think so that's awesome. So like, I don't really have an opinion on fasting, and like you can find data both ways. I think the
Oh,
benefit
absolutely.
to what you just described is why it's important to do hard stuff,
Hmm.
right? So you mentioned going into a cut, you're going to be hungry. Everyone knows this. Every bodybuilder, everyone in the fitness industry. If you move your bar of what's difficult and what is like severe, what's challenging, impossible, whatever, wherever your bar is currently, you move that a notch, it's going to reshape everything else and how you attack everything else in your life.
Absolutely. And it's people, like you were saying, they're soft right now. Any discomfort is like, no. And I'm like, no, discomfort's good. That's where you feel alive, is discomfort.
Yeah.
If you're not challenging yourself, you're not living, man. So that's one of the reasons I do the things that I do and how I've kept myself interested over the years. Like I think I'm the only one left of my college buddies that's still lifting and dieting and doing this stuff. And it's because they never really found other things to challenge themselves. Like, they
Yeah.
played ball, they were throwers or whatever. Once that was over, it's just like, ugh, now I'm just going through the motions. And that's just not for especially people that are competitive people that are wired that way. That's guaranteed couch potato type 2 diabetes. And a lot of my friends are suffering from that. And I'm confused by it. I'm like, dude, you literally know better. Like you went to school for this. Like you were an athlete. Like, what are you doing? And they just never seem to find that other thing to keep themselves motivated, that thing to challenge them or whatever. So I'm always very adamant with my clients that they find a thing that challenges them, something difficult, something to accomplish, get that dopamine hit. Because if you never get that dopamine hit for what you're doing, then you lose interest. It's just how the human brain works.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned hunter gatherers, and you look at our society, I think humanity would last a week if we had to hunter gatherer today.
Oh yeah, if the
It
if
would,
an EMP bomb went up over the United States, it would clear out a lot of the population very quickly. I mean,
it'd clear out.
to like 75% of
Unfortunately,
us.
like it'd probably kill like 75 to 80% of us.
Mhm.
For some reason, they'd probably burn down a Best Buy and clear out an Apple store. But
Those
like,
hillbillies in the Appalachian Mountains be just fine.
yeah, like, but like even myself, I was talking to a client about this. We were talking about the difference in like combat styles over time and how like we wouldn't go to war today on the front lines with like a sword. Like, we have weapons, planes, bombs, stuff like that. Whereas like 1,000 years ago, they're like, hey, we're all gonna line up, we're all gonna pull out our swords and get to
Oh,
work. And we
oh
were
yeah.
talking, I was like I was in the army, I was in the infantry, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I could go fight with a sword. Like, I'm sure like if push came to shove, I'd try, but like I don't think like it just wouldn't translate to like our society. So then you go to hunter gatherers and you're like, yeah, we'll all die in like 80% of us will die in like a week.
Oh yeah, it would get real rough really quickly because we're so dependent on the system. So, and also we a lot of people just don't have basic survival skills anymore. I mean, I know people
Mm,
that are in their 50s that don't know how to cook. What? They literally their entire lives are just eating stuff out of a box or out of a window. It's like, oh my God, like you literally like if I would lock you in your house with food, like what would you do? like like
yeah.
honestly, I mean, these are just like basic skills that you need to survive, and people just don't have them. And let alone like, oh my God, if you had to go out and kill something, good Lord, they wouldn't know what to do. And of course, there's plenty of people out there that believe that food just comes from the supermarket. It's like, oh, we don't need farmers. Food's at the grocery store. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, this
good
Santa
Lord,
Claus
you're not going to
Santa
survive
Claus
the
drops them off.
apocalypse. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The apocalypse is not going to treat you well, my friend.
Yeah, definitely not. You're gonna be what's that movie? This Is the End, with all the comedians where the world's ending,
Yes, yes, yes. I
and
saw that
and
one.
and Danny McBride comes out of the RV and he's got Channing Tatum on a leash. Like, you're gonna be that guy in the apocalypse.
Oh man,
Thank you as always for joining me.
absolutely. That was it's
It's
always
been a
fun.
pleasure. Yeah, we're gonna have to deep dive into some strength training protocols in a future episode, to definitely lock that in.
Oh yeah,
But
I
again,
do I do love talking about that. That's I could
yeah,
ad lib that for hours.
yeah. So thank you for joining me. I think this conversation was very informative. Hopefully, you found something of value to this topic if you listened in. Obviously, again, we are not medical professionals. We are just personal
Mhm.
trainers and nutrition coaches who have expertise in this field. And these are our opinions. This is not medical advice. Obviously, talk to your primary care physician if you have questions on some of the topics that we talked about today. But other than that, Johann, brother, it's been great. I'll catch you next time.